The big money is coming in on April 2nd, from April 2nd.
The headlines screamed panic, markets plunged into chaos, and world powers scrambled to respond. But this isn't just about numbers. This is about power, politics, and a financial earthquake that sent shockwaves from Wall Street to Beijing, from Brussels to every single retirement account in the US. This is the moment the world stopped trusting the dollar and started preparing for something far bigger. It began with Trump, as it often does, a fiery speech, bold claims, and the introduction of an aggressive tariff strategy that targeted not just China, but nearly every major trading partner. Overnight, uncertainty gripped the financial world like a vice. Investors panicked. Hedge funds scrambled. Tech stocks were hammered. The Dow didn't just dip, it collapsed, taking with it trillions of dollars in global wealth. The market freefall wasn't slow and graceful. It was a nosedive, like a plane losing altitude with no pilot in the cockpit. Confidence, that delicate thread holding economies together, snapped. And when America sneezes, the rest of the world doesn't just catch a cold, it gets the flu. Europe strikes back. The European Union wasn't going to sit quietly and watch its economic backbone get torched. Within 48 hours, emergency meetings were held in Brussels. Leaders from Germany, France, Italy, and the Netherlands gathered to coordinate a response. Their plan? Cut dependency on US trade and finance. Talk of a digital euro gained momentum. Quiet discussions about forming new alliances with Asian powerhouses turned into full-blown strategy sessions. Germany, the economic engine of Europe, began reducing US Treasury holdings and boosting gold reserves, a move not seen since the Cold War. France reignited dormant trade deals with India and Brazil. And all across Europe, a common theme emerged: diversify or drown. China's ruthless retaliation. But while Europe planned, China acted, and fast. The moment the tariffs hit, Beijing unveiled. For ordinary Americans, this meant delayed home purchases, frozen business plans, and job insecurity. Billion-dollar corporations began offloading staff while smaller companies simply shut their doors. It wasn't just a market crash, it was a confidence crisis. People stopped spending. Fear became the economy's fuel. And all the while, Trump stood firm, claiming this was the price of taking back control. But to many, it felt like the price was their entire future. Global realignment begins. Around the globe, countries started looking at each other, not the US, for direction. ASEAN nations formed tighter bonds with China. African Union leaders gathered to discuss independent economic models away from Western institutions. Saudi Arabia and Russia, once merely oil allies, began economic collaboration on energy tech, excluding the US. And as these alliances strengthened, something bigger unfolded: a quiet but massive shift in power. For decades, the world orbited around the US economy. But now, the gravitational pull was changing. America no longer looked like the inevitable future. It looked like a relic of the past. And that scared more people than they cared to admit. What happens to the dollar? With $10 trillion gone and investor confidence shattered, questions loomed over the dollar itself. Could it maintain its status as the global reserve currency, the digital yuan, the euro, and even the possibility of a BRICS-backed coin gained real traction? Countries began trading oil in non-dollar currencies. Central banks across Asia and the Middle East reduced their dollar reserves. Even longtime allies like Japan and Australia began diversifying. What once seemed unthinkable, a world not run on dollars, suddenly looked very possible. The US wasn't just losing money, it was losing relevance. The political fallout. Politically, the backlash was brutal. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle pointed fingers. Protesters filled streets in major cities demanding economic relief. Governors clashed with federal agencies over bailout plans. Meanwhile, the 2024 presidential race took on a new tone. Candidates no longer debated just healthcare or immigration. They debated the very role of America in the global economy. The crash didn't just shake markets, it shook democracy. People questioned if one man should have so much economic power. And even Trump's allies found themselves walking on thin ice, trying to defend a plan that had backfired so spectacularly. The tech sector takes a hit. The tech world, once the crown jewel of the US economy, took one of the hardest hits. Companies like Apple, Tesla, and Meta saw their stock prices drop like bowling balls off a rooftop. Silicon Valley, once unstoppable, suddenly looked fragile. Layoffs swept across campuses. Projects were shelved. Even AI research, the future itself, faced funding freezes. Foreign investors backed out. Venture capital dried up. And in boardrooms all across California, the once cocky optimism was replaced with cold, calculating survival mode. Innovation had slowed. And when innovation slows in America, the entire world feels it. The rise of parallel economies. But with crisis comes creativity. In the shadows of Wall Street's collapse, alternative economies began to flourish. Crypto made a bizarre comeback. Barter systems popped up in small towns. Local co-ops gained popularity. And overseas, countries experimented with state-backed, decentralized finance platforms. It was as if the crash had broken the rules, and now, people were writing new ones. Whether it was desperation or innovation, something new was being born. A world not reliant on centralized control. A world where trust was rebuilt through technology, transparency, and the painful memory of what went wrong. So what now? Is this the beginning of the end for American financial dominance, or the jolt that forces a great reset? One thing is clear. The $10 trillion wiped out wasn't just money. It was momentum, reputation, and power. Trump may have triggered the explosion, but the debris is global. As the EU builds new alliances and China builds new empires, the US faces a choice: double down on old strategies or evolve. This isn't just about trade wars or market dips. This is about survival in a world where loyalty is bought with stability, not slogans. And if America wants to lead again, it might have to do something it hasn't done in a long time. Listen, learn, and rebuild. Until then, the world is watching and waiting.